This is Shabbos, and this is Daf Lamed Ches. We are talking about animals that go out and what they could be wearing. The last thing we talked about was whether or not someone who was from Libya is allowed to then marry into the congregation of Israel. The question, of course, is because Libya is next to Mitzrayim, Egypt. The question is Libya at that time called Lubi, was that considered a place that was also considered Mitzrayim back then? Are they under the same gezerah? Amar Rav Yonah ben Tzura says, "Min ma'adtan chama hana paila mitzriya." That which we see at the Egyptian bean, the cowpea, is kedaim ritiv, which is when it's fresh. It's lubi. It's not. It's called the lubi, the Libyan bean. Kadu nikiv, but when it is drying, inon tzavachin le paila mitzriya. It's called the Egyptian bean. Hada amar ger mulubi tzarach lamter shleishadayros. The link between the Egyptian and the Libyan bean teaches that from Libya must wait 3 generations. How the Amarhu Lubihu Mitzri. For it tells us that Libya is the same as Mitzrayim. Basically, the bean is called different things, but basically the reason why they call different things is because it's from the same country. Libya and Mitzrayim are basically the same country. Libya used to be part of Mitzrayim, and therefore that answers the question of whether or not someone from Libya has to wait 3 generations to join Klal Yisrael before the Gerus could come into effect. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachman b'shem Rav Oshia. Nachman says b'shem Rav Oshia. Halakha Rabbi Talmud. Halakha follows the Talmud, which is Rabbi Yehuda. The Recham say, "Kol min pradi oisechad." All types of mules are the same. So what is it talking about? Our Mishnah talks about different animals that go out, and in Sechtas Kalayim it talks something very similar. It talks about harnessing together, and for which animals can be harnessed together. So Rabbi Yehuda says that it's usher for 2 different types of mules. The Chum say, no, 2 different types of mules could be harnessed together. Rav Shmuel b'shem Rav Zeira. Rav Shmuel says the name of Rav Zeira. Kimad, Hamid Talmud Unison v'chein kol or sha'ar behema states regarding permission that the cow may go out with a mituletes, and so the halach is that all animals may go out with mituletes, even though that's redundant. Because you could just say all other animals go out. You don't say this has to go out. All animals go out with lettuce. So linear heter. So it's still a linear heter. Same thing with the collar. We said that the horse would go with the collar to all other animals. We're not trying to learn anything to exclude a horse or include a horse. Basically, all animals go out with a collar. Now, we also learned in the Mishnah that if a collar or a harness became tameh, then it could be toivel. So the chena sus b'sher, and so do a horse with a collar. So the Gemara is now going to try to figure out why it would become tamei and how to be toivel. V'la kain tani, but we now learned in a brayso called tashite adam tmein. All adornments of a man are mikabel tama. Tashite behem v'tayrim, but the adornments of an animal is not mikabel tama. So Tiftar Basuyon La Hanoisam. Interpret is discussing the cow leads to use beasts of burden. So if they used to use beasts of burden, then it could be a camel tomah, because now they're not just an adornment, they're useful. And if you put it onto another animal, so then it might be Makabal Tuma, and then you might want to be Taifel it. Okay, the Gemara says, though, it's assuming that this is on a beast of burden, and it was used to make it Makabal Tuma on Shabbos. So let's see. The Ein Eisen Charetz, but are you not worried that with beast of burden you're going to make a furrow? So we have an answer to that. The Rabbanan say, what did we say? We had a lacha. The wheels of a wagon that are already sunk into dirt. Or if you have legs of a chair that are already sunk into dirt, you're allowed to leave that, you're allowed to pull them straight, and you're not worried about making the furrow. Of course, Rabbi Shimon matters it anyway. So in that situation, you have to worry, because if the horse was standing in soft dirt and its legs already were inside the soft dirt, then probably according to Rabbanan you can lead it, and for sure Rabbi Shimon you can lead it. Let's see what the Gemara says. Allah, Rabbi Shimon, rather according to Rabbi Shimon, the Tani was taught in a brisa, Lo yigar adam es hamita v'yes hakisa v'yes hafsafso v'yes hakider. A person might drag a bed, a chair, a recliner with neishu oisacharetz, because it may make a bar on the ground. But what did we learn again over there? We learned there that so long as the legs were already in the ground, sunk in the ground, then you're allowed to lead it. Rabbi Shimon says it's mutter even if the legs are not sunken into the ground. So here we can talk about one of the 2 situations, either according to Rabbi Shimon or according to Rabbanan, but the horse's legs are already sunk in into the soft dirt. Amar Rab Chanina. Rab Chanina says, "Kadatanim, that which we told in the brisa, delas gaireris, a door that drags, mechzelas gaireris, or a mat that's attached to a door that drags, kinlanois gairer, or a lattice gate that drags." Pesach v'noitel Shabbos. Allowed to open and close Shabbos. This actually is very practical because people do have gates and gate doors and doors that open, and one of the parts of the wood that are sticking down or part of the gate is scraping up against the floor, and going back and forth will make a furrow. So just opening and closing the door. The point is just open and close the door. That's fine. You're not trying to make a furrow, even though furrow is made incidentally. So that is allowed on Shabbos. And of course on Yom Tov, because Yom Tov you're allowed to do things for Tzarech Nefesh. But Tani came, and it's also in a brisa. Machzeles shehi kishura luya ba'amid. A reed mat that is tied and suspended from a post. Pesach v'noitel Shabbos. You may open and close on Shabbos. Ein tzarech l'mer Yom Tov. Again, the work you're doing is incidental. Any furrow that's made is incidental, so you're allowed to do it. Umezin aleihen v'tayvleim v'kaimaim. So only sprinkle upon them and immerse them in their place. Again, this is either a piece of burden, or this was the collar or the bit or the part of the harness that was used on a piece of burden, and now it's put onto another animal for an adornment. But anyway, since it was used at one point for a piece of burden to lead it, so therefore it's Makabal Tama. So time and Taninan, so Mishnah teaches Lai Tivalo Bahan Ad Shirapim. But a woman who has her hair tied very tightly, she has to loosen her hair. Otherwise, she can't go into the mikvah. And it won't take effect. And yet here the Mishnah states that when its harness is on, go ahead and toivel the animal. Amar says, Kan barafim. This is with loose collars, Kan with some futsim. And that was with tight collars. Obviously, with loose collars, it's the same thing like untying the hair. So what comes out from the Mishnah is, you're allowed to let the dog go into water or sprinkle the dog or the animal on Shabbos. And that's gonna not only is it gonna help the dog, but it's also going to make the harness or the collar tahar from tummy tahar. Usually, toivel things on Shabbos is not allowed, but apparently in this situation it's allowed because incidental on the dog, so it's incidental to the dog, and also the dog go out with it on Shabbos. Chamar Yotze Be'mardas is man shehik shura like. Second, this is the next halacha beis. A donkey may go with a saddlecloth when it is tied to the donkey. Has karem Yotze Huvim, rams may go out with breastplates, and the Gemara will explain what the breastplate is for. Rechelois and use Yotzes Shechuzais may go out prepared, meaning their tails tied up or out of the way. Kavulais, or the tail is tied down to protect them, or kavunais, or fasteners to protect them. Va'izim tzurais, and goats may go out with their udders tied. I'm going to find out why the udder is tied, and whether or not it's for any reason or only for a specific reason. Rabbi Yaisi Aiser Bechula. Rabbi Yaisi says all these are aser. Chutz min harachelim hachvunais, except for ewes that are have fasteners to protect themselves. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Izim yotzim tzura liafish." Goats may go out with the udders tied so that their milk can be dried out. Avaloi l'chalav, but not to salvage milk. And why is that? Because when you're tying it to dry it out, so you can leave the tie there. When it's to salvage milk, you're really tying a little contraption there that catches the milk, anything that drips. And you may come to loosen it to check to see if either milk dripped, or if milk did go there, you're going to see and maybe either tighten it up or take it off so that you could use it, and that might go in Shizrabim, and that's going to be a problem. Chamar Yotze B'mardas. A donkey may go out with a saddlecloth. Shmuel says, Bikshura loy me'erev Shabbos. You may not tie it. Sorry, you tie it on Erev Shabbos. Bikshura loy me'erev Shabbos. You tie it on Erev Shabbos. So why do you have to tie it on Erev Shabbos? Why can't you worry about tying it on Shabbos? Because you worry about a permanent knot. That's what it seems like. Our permanent knot is a problem. Whereas if it's already tied before Shabbos, then that's not a problem with the knot, and it goes out. Clearly, the going out with the breastplate is not the problem. You could go out the breastplate. But the question he has is whether tying a knot is on Shabbos. Chanin miguf saya amar kumi Shmuel. So Chanin of Gusaya said before Shmuel, Rav Chia bar Ashi loy nugget came. But Rav Chia bar Ashi did not worry. They allowed it to be tied on Shabbos because it was not a kesher shel kayama. It was not a knot that would last forever. They would actually loosen it and untie it at the end of the day, or when it was inside. So therefore, since it wasn't kesher shel kayama, it allowed to be done on Shabbos. Amrle, he said the Chanina. Nahig be kilastrin. This is the practice of the feed bag. The Tani for to Raisa. Scharim yaitzin beklastrin. Males may go out with a feed bag. It's interesting. The word beklastrin sounds very much similar to the English word that we use now for a feeding bag or a feeding tube for someone who has to get into the stomach. The colostomy. Very similar word. Must come from the same Greek origin or the like. Chasiv Rav Acha Bar Papa Kumi Rav Zera. Rav Acha Bar Papa challenged Rav Zera. Hatani. And was taught in the Brisa. Hevel Shahu Kashor Befara. If a rope is tied to a cow, Shairin Isai Be'efus. You may tie it to the feeding trough. If it doesn't go too far and it eats from it. Kashin Isai Be'efus. You may tie it to the feeding trough. And then Kashin Isai Befara. And then you can tie the other side to the cow. Nicha befara koishrin aisai be'evus. It's understandable that the rope is tied to a cow, you may tie it to the feeding trough. Be'evus koishrin aisai para, but when the feeding trough is tied to the feeding trough, when the rope is tied to the feeding trough, so then how can you tie it to the cow? V'loi nimsa mishtameash v'tzidei behema b'Shabbos, but will he not be found to have made use of the sides of an animal on Shabbos, right? Because then the rope might lean on the sides of the animal on Shabbos. And if he does that, so then that could be a problem. So Amar Rabba says, Tiftar b'kashon she'ein la kayama. No, we're talking about a knot that is not lasting. And therefore it's not lasting, so therefore you're not really going to use the sides of the animal. So Amar Rabbi Yisrael basically says, Shniya ha tzedei behema. Is there any difference that bein kesher shugam bein kesher kayama, using the size of an animal, whether the knot was meant to last or not was not meant to last? So the havmina of the not meant to last, meaning he's not really using the side of the behem. Well, it's incidental because he's really just trying to tie it there temporarily. So therefore, he has no benefit from using the side of the behema. If it's a kesher kayama, then maybe he wanted to rest it there so it's easier for him to tie. So then you could say that he's purposely using the size of the animal. What he's saying is that doesn't make a difference. Whether or not you had intention of using the side of the animal, use the side of the animal. You intended, not intend, used it. And that's the problem. So Rabbi Shammai says, Tiftar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Let's explain Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar like this. It's not. We learned in the Brisa. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Rabbi Shimon says, Mutil shameash al slidan ilan b'Shabbos. It is permitted to make use of the size of a tree on Shabbos. Hutzli behema, hutzli ilan. Just like you use the size of an animal, you can use the size of a tree when you're trying to do something, and therefore it's fine. It's not muksa, or it's not considered resting down or putting it down. That is allowed. Amar Rabbi Rabbana says, Kemta b'sasei kevel al chevel. Another answer is the Brisa can be upheld even according to the one who prohibits leaning or using the side of an animal with attaching one rope to another rope. So if you're attaching one rope to another rope, that's going to be a problem. But if you're just attaching one rope to a side or one rope to the other side of the behema, that's fine. Then there's no problem with using the side of behema or for tying the knots. Zcharim yaitzeh muluvavin. Brands will go out with a breastplate. Shehu noisein oid mibur sinin keneged libay. He places worked leather over its heart for who mastres keneged chayim, and it shields it against wild beasts. It protects the animal against wild beasts. Ewes may go prepared for mating, meaning with their tails tied up. is Tane Shechuzos. There's a Tana that says that the word is Shechuzos, like we have, and there's a Tane Shechuzos, and one says Shuzos. What's the difference between the word to say that it's prepared for mating? So Manda Amar Shuzos, the one that says Shuzos, not like it in our Mishnah. So it's Ma'adtan, he's prepared. Kamad Tamark, it says in Mishlei, Shizoina Venutrach Lev. A person beholds a woman and comes out with his bottom back beer, like a Zaina, like a harlot, and with his heart surrounded. He's completely snared by her. So that's like an animal. It's bottom exposed, ready to be mounted. So man demar shechuzos. What is that shechuzos? Like in our Mishnah, kima ein shemachzichin es asakin. Machzichin means to sharpen, and that's the same word as chuzos. So you sharpen the knife, you prepare the knife, so too you're preparing the animal for mating. Kivunais, when you had when you had something fastened there to protect the animal, though, lemelas. That was for melas. So what does it mean? The first white of a sheep is the whitest it'll ever be. So sometimes you cover it over the young baby sheep with this white with this cloth, and melas is that white wool. So you cover it over, and that got to go out on Shabbos because it doesn't really come off. Kivulais, when you tie the tails down, so then the male should not want to mount it.